Russia may pull out of the START treaty and stop nuclear disarmament if the US continues to deploy its missile defense shield in Europe. President Medvedev said Moscow could also deploy its own strike systems like Iskander missiles on its own borders as a response. Let's now cross over to RT's Anisa Nawi, standing by live here in central Moscow. Anisa, with the US and NATO seemingly unwilling to budge, President Medvedev has made his position clear. Give us the details.
Very clear indeed. Some harsh and direct words from President Medvedev this afternoon here in Moscow on what Russia will do if the U.S. continues to move forward on its plans for missile defense in Europe, which has continued to grow after the signing of the new Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty back in April 2010. President Medvedev pointed out that Russia would begin to create and upload its own radar system throughout the country's western and also in the east that would predict any kind of activity in terms of missiles. Although the U.S. says that it's not directed towards Russia, it's directed towards so-called rogue states. That is not enough anymore, and this is what the president said would happen if the steps to create its own radar missile detecting system and launch it really weren't enough.
If other measures are insufficient, Russia will deploy contemporary strike systems in the west and south in order to prevent fire damage from US missile systems deployed in Europe. The deployment of the Iskander missile system in the Kaliningrad region will be one such step. If the situation develops in an unfavorable way, Russia will reserve the right to cease further steps in the area of disarmament and arms control. Moreover, given the inextricable link between strategic, offensive and defensive weapons, reasons could emerge for Russia's withdrawal from the Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty. This is envisioned within the content of the treaty.
Now, I just want to point out that this announcement from the Russian president comes after the U.S. announced that it would not be sharing data, non-nuclear data, it should be pointed out, with Russia. Russia has decided to answer with this. Really, it has to be said, the signing of the new START treaty back in April 2010 was hailed as a reset between the two countries. It wasn't a document that legally binds either side, and that is something that Russia is looking for, guarantees that these missiles will not be directed against them, even though the U.S., its NATO, and its European allies constantly trying to reassure Russia that it's not, words are just not enough. They need something on paper that says that it's guaranteed that these rockets will never, ever be used against Russia.
A huge setback for the CIA. ABC's Brian Ross has learned at least a dozen American spies in Iran and Lebanon have been taken into custody by the militant group Hezbollah, the militant group with close ties to Iran. The U.S. government is concerned the spies will be or may already have been executed. The group's leader first bragged about outing U.S. spies back in June, but the U.S. embassy denied it at the time.
Saif al-Islam Gaddafi was betrayed to his captors by a nomad who says he was hired to help the former Libyan leader's son escape. Saif's two-car convoy was ambushed in the South Libyan desert.
Libyan nomad Youssef al-Hatmani says he was promised €1 million to lead Muammar Gaddafi's son through the desert to Niger. But instead of helping him escape, Hatmani says he led Saif al-Islam Gaddafi to his capture by Libya's revolutionary fighters.
The site of the ambush was a deep hole in between the sand dunes. We tempted them to this location.
Wanted by the International Criminal Court, Saif al-Islam was seized over the weekend by fighters allied with the country's National Transitional Council and transported to a secret location to await prosecution. Hatmani, who calls himself the son of the desert, says he was never paid a penny of the €1 million and believed he would be executed at the border.
Is this the border of Libya?
Hello everyone, welcome to Global Government News. Today is Wednesday, November 23rd, 2011. I'm Darko. My website is ggnonline.com and ddarko2012 is my YouTube channel. There's a poll up here, you can go check that out. You can put in your email address there and you can receive GGN updates, and I'm going to get moving here. Okay, so you just saw the video of Gaddafi's son in that plane and that, also with the those operatives, spies in Iran and that. And Let's just get moving. CIA intelligence fiasco in Lebanon. Hezbollah has dealt a heavy blow to CIA operations in Lebanon, forcing the intelligence agency to curtail its espionage activities in the country, U.S. officials say. According to current and former officials, CIA ops in Lebanon have been badly damaged after the resistance movement identified and captured a number of U.S. spies this year, AP reported. They've also said that the CIA officials have secretly been scrambling in recent months to protect their remaining spies, foreign assets, or agents working for the agency before Hezbollah finds them. Finishes up by saying Beirut Station is out of business, said one source using the CIA terminology. In April 2009, Lebanon launched a nationwide crackdown on spy cells, mostly Israeli networks, arresting nearly 100 people, including members of the country's security forces, Mossad telecom personnel, on suspicion of espionage for Mossad. Next up, we have U.S. to name Iran area of money laundering concern. So when we go down, it says U.S. Treasury Department plans to designate Iran as an area of primary money laundering concern. So they've put how many sanctions on them? On Monday, U.S. officials said a move that will prompt new steps to isolate Tehran from the international financial system. I think they were actually trying to put sanctions on their central bank. Says here the moves are expected to coordinate with Canada and Britain, where the finance ministry ordered all UK financial institutions to stop doing business with the Iran counterparts and the Iranian central bank. Yeah, so there you go. What is the funny part? The funny part is that America's actually an area of money laundering concern, right? So you have, I've mentioned this before, but it's been a while, the drug cartels and all that in Mexico actually use these banks that are they're in the United States. They're Wells Fargo. They're all these American banks, Bank of America, that are actually doing the money laundering, and the only oversight that they have is themselves. So they look after themselves for money laundering. So basically, when they get caught, they say, "Oops," and then but they just keep doing it. So the Mexican drug cartels, basically the Mexican government does their little business. Runs their business, and then the money goes to the U.S. financial institutions and then goes back. So that's also a money laundering area of concern. And of course, you have Switzerland too, right? Which are recently starting to clamp down on smaller guys, smaller time people. It says here, Iran conducts 4-day air defense drill exercise in East Iran aimed at heightening level of preparedness amid possible threats to airspace nuclear centers. Says here the Iranian army was set to launch an air defense drill Friday evening, simulating an attack on the country's nuclear facilities, the Islamic Republic news agency reported, according to the regime's mouthpiece. I love how they always say that, like the regime's mouthpiece. Because in the United States, we just have privately run mouthpieces, right? But over there, it's publicly run mouthpieces. But a lot of them are still spewing the same bullshit. So you just have to find out what is bullshit and what's not, right? So the 4-day drill will be held in eastern Iran and stress the characteristics of the Islamic Republic's defense doctrine in the framework of the heightened air defense alert level. Okay, so there you go. All of Israel within Iran missile reach. This is a new article here. A senior Iranian military official describes missile shields deployed in the region to protect Tel Aviv as inadequate, saying all of Israel is within Iran's missiles reach. Russia warns U.S. Israel against attack on Iran. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov warned the U.S. and Israel against an attack on Iran, cautioning such a move would mean a very serious mistake. It could bring very unpredictable results, and military intervention only creates a great number of victims, he said. And he says, yeah, it's not impossible, talking about an Israeli attack against Iran. Okay, then we have half of U.S. voters say bomb Iran if sanctions fail. This is from the AFP. 50% of Americans believe military action should be taken to stop Iran's nuclear program if sanctions do not work. A national poll released on Wednesday. So that's pretty interesting stuff right there. Some 55% of respondents said the United States should not take immediate military action against Iran, with 36% in favor. Then we have Turkey to probe reports of bus attacks in Syria. Turkey's foreign minister said Monday it was investigating reports that Turkish pilgrims were shot in Syria, leaving 2 wounded. Video posted on the internet by Syria pro-democracy activists showed wounded people being transferred from several buses to ambulances in Hatay, just across the Syrian border in Turkey. Apparently, after the pilgrims' return, remember you had those Iranians that were also shot down on that bus. They weren't killed, but they were shot at. The bus was attacked. And if I remember correctly, they were driving through Turkey. So a lot of these places now you have to be careful where you go. Syrian, because all the lines are being drawn. Although I've mentioned this before, it's all just a big show playing out in front of our eyes. So it's all run by the same group. So it says here, Syrian Baath Party building hit by rockets. Syrian army defectors say that they launched a rocket-propelled grenade attack on the Baath Party building in Damascus on Sunday, the first insurgent attack inside the Syrian capital since the uprising. No, I don't know what they're talking about. The first insurgent attack inside the Syrian capital. Well, maybe it is inside the capital, I guess. But it's not the first insurgent attack. Those protesters, there's a decent amount of them that are being armed by somebody else, but they are armed, heavily armed. Rice, Assad taking Syria to brink of civil war, says former Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice, says Syrian President Bashar Assad is taking his country to the brink of civil war. Rice tells CNN State of the Union that Assad's crackdown is creating a very dangerous situation. She says Assad, quote, is no friend of the United States corporation, and that his overthrow would be, quote, a great thing for the Syrian people, U.S. interests, and anyone seeking a more peaceful Middle East. So, like I said before, a lot of times when the term peace is used, it means capitulation. So when you look at that article, you can see what the first thing would be the first great thing would be the U.S. interests, right? It would be capitulation, then it would be the U.S. interest going in there, and then it would be the Syrian people. Syria says France to propose humanitarian corridor. So that's interesting. That's a new word, like kinetic military action that Obama was using when he was talking about no-fly zone and killing civilians in Libya in order to force them to capitulate. So, Gaddafi couldn't promote this competing currency against the dollar and whatnot. France has called for humanitarian corridor to protect civilians in Syria. I guess we know what that implies. The first time a major Western power has suggested international intervention on the ground in an 8-month uprising against Assad. Next up, here we go. Arab states, Turkey plan no-fly zone over Syria. So that's the humanitarian corridor. Senior European sources said that the Arab jet fighters, possibly Turkish warplanes backed by American logistics, i.e. CIA, support will implement a no-fly zone in Syria's skies after the Arab League will issue a decision under its charter calling for the protection of Syrian civilians. Aircraft carrier CVN-77 parks next door to Syria, just as the U.S. Urges Americans to leave the country immediately. Then we have Britain to unite anti-Syria gangs. British Foreign Minister William Hague calls for a united front to be established against the sovereign government of President Bashar al-Assad in Syria. The call was made during a meeting in London with the members of the Syrian opposition in exile, which is known to be sponsoring armed terror gangs inside the Arab country. That's what I was talking about. Hague told in a press conference after a meeting that the current Syrian government had long lost its legitimacy in the eyes of the wider world. I have, of course, expressed a view that we have held since the summer of Assad regime should go, and that is the best thing for the future of Syria, i.e. the future of them and outside interests. Navy frigate sent to Libya with 4 missiles. Royal Navy frigate was sent to Libya, the Libya war zone, armed with as few as 4 missiles, it has been disclosed. And Libya, Saif Gaddafi, courage, surprise captors. And it goes in there, it says that Muammar Gaddafi, who vowed to go down fighting, showed surprising courage and lack of fear when he was cornered, his captor said on Sunday. Amir, another fighter, said Gaddafi's son, who in February vowed to fight, quote, until the last bullet, asked his captors, quote, to fire a bullet to his head as he was being taken to Zintan, a town. Questions Saif Gaddafi probably won't be asked, and it goes in there and talks about a Daily Telegraph article, basically tying him to the Duke of York, Prince Andrew, especially Blair. He was all over there, Blair. and talking about a personal family friend Gaddafi was. As the Mail noted, the next to last remaining Gaddafi son is likely to face the firing squad, so there's no one really worrying too much after a conventional trial in Libya by the new rulers whom the same British establishment just brought to power. And finishing up, U.S.-led strike kills 9 Afghan civilians, leaving Iraq. U.S. planes to send troops to Kuwait, drones to Turkey and Texas. Then Turkey apologizes for Kurdish massacre today, but look at just the night before, Turkish warplanes bomb northern Iraq. That's right. And just a month ago, Turkish army kills 49 Kurdish terrorists, or separatists if you want to call them, but I apologize.